All right, welcome everyone to the National Crime Victim Law Institute's RISE series. This is our Rights in Action Lunchtime series. We are coming to you Mountain Time because we are traveling to Arizona today. We are hosting this series during National Crime Victims' Rights Week. This week is set aside nationally to honor the achievements in the victim services field, to elevate victims' voices, and to kind of really talk about how do we activate, elevate, and engage meaningfully victims' rights every day in the work that we do. So we are partnering with our legal experts and our legal advocates across the country to get down into one of the key things that National Crime Victim Law Institute does, and that is technical assistance. We provide technical assistance to thousands of individuals and organizations annually. And we do this in a myriad of ways, usually through requests, and then we're able to offer assistance, whether it's filing a motion, whether it's just giving language. There are so many different ways that the amazing experts and attorneys at NCVLI can help you. If you are struggling, if you have a survivor or a victim or a case that you're just scratching your head on, NCVLI is your solution, I promise you. They get creative, they are incredibly intelligent, and they will get into the weeds with you and they will figure out a solution that can help meet that victim's need. Please don't let a case go by because you fear that you don't have standing or you fear that you can't take it to your courts. NCVLI will help you every step of the way. So today, it's Wednesday. We're already halfway through National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Colleen, how did this happen?
Have no idea.
Yeah, so I am being joined with Colleen Clase, and she is the Chief Counsel for the Arizona Voice for Crime Victims, an amazing partner of NCVLI's. And obviously Arizona, you guys are like the mother of victims' rights, having, the first constitutional victims' rights in the country, incredible attorneys, incredible history, and yet you still have challenges.
We do.
Yeah. It happens, right? So it just goes to show that regardless of how good your laws are or how solid your programs are, there are still challenges every day that we face for crime victims. So Colleen, you're going to talk to us today about the right to restitution, right? Which is this really fundamental economic, financial restoration right that every crime victim should be afforded, right? And you had some struggles. So you came to NCVLI with those struggles. Talk a little bit about what that was like.
Definitely. So I was retained in a case to represent a child victim who was the surviving sibling of a homicide victim. And the defendants in the case were her family members. And 3 of those 4 defendants entered into guilty pleas. Each of those guilty pleas contained a cap on restitution that was $500,000, basically capping the amount of her economic loss that she can seek. So for her, there were 2 things at stake here. We had an instance where her individual right, a right that our Constitution and statutes confer upon victims, her individual right was essentially being waived by the parties to the case. The government and the defendants, defense attorneys were basically using the restitution cap as a negotiating tool in coming to this plea agreement. So that was the first thing. But the other thing, and probably the more practical thing that a victim might think of, is their economic loss is capped at certain amounts. And in this amount, it was $500,000. That might sound like a lot of money, but each and every situation is different. So here she was facing the possibility of not being fully compensated for the economic loss she probably will incur as a result of this offense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Which is awful, right? And I know when we talk about money and finances, people tend to get opinionated, right? And when you really start to dive into the economic factors and the loss and the medical expenses and missed work and all these kind of ancillary financial costs, they add up and they add up fast.
They do.
Yeah. So how did NCVLI help? Like, what was it about the technical assistance that you sought that made a difference in this case?
So in this case, NCVLI's help was so important and so valuable to what we were about to do. These restitution caps that the state put into the plea agreement, that's how prosecutors in Arizona had been trained because of 3 cases, actually 3 or 4 cases from the mid to the late 1980s that predate our constitutional amendment that actually required restitution caps in plea agreements as a matter of federal due process. Well, if you practice both in the state and federal system, you know that federal due process does not require restitution to be capped. But there was this body of case law in Arizona that analyzed this issue under federal due process. There was never a state due process right that our court found, but a federal due process. And this was the precedent. These cases predated our Victims' Bill of Rights, but they managed to survive nearly 30 years past the enactment of our constitutional amendment. So we knew we were climbing a mountain going into this because courts are hesitant to overrule their precedent. And that's exactly what we were going into this, asking the Arizona Supreme Court to reevaluate these cases, to review these cases, and just to overrule these cases based on victims' rights. So the help that I got from NCVLI, I couldn't have done this. We couldn't have had the success that we had in this case without the technical assistance from NCVLI and the assistance they gave me in developing not only the arguments for our initial petition for review, but our supplemental briefing, and then coming into oral argument, moot courts that we did virtually with NCVLI staff.
Awesome. And so I know you've had an exciting outcome in this case. So what has been the outcome and results of this?
So this particular case, in August of, we argued this case in the Arizona Supreme Court in November of 2019. On August 4th of 2020, we got our Arizona Supreme Court opinion, and they did overrule their pre-victims' rights cases and held that restitution cannot be capped in a plea agreement without the consent of the victim.
I just got chills, right? That's because it just goes to show, first of all, even in a state where, you know, we kind of look to you as the Holy Grail of victims' rights, there are still challenges. But I hope this story can speak to those states maybe where the standing isn't as clear, or rights, there are bad case laws, that we can come in and overturn bad case law, and we can take on some of these cases that seem insurmountable and get over the cliff. And I'm just so excited that this was the outcome for that survivor in Arizona.
Yes, and we are still working this case. We actually just yesterday, while this case was pending, we had another challenge where a restitution claim that she made was, the trial court refused to set an evidentiary hearing, saying that it was untimely. And so we challenged that also. And just yesterday, I got an opinion from the Arizona Court of Appeals saying that it was not untimely, and they have ordered the trial court to hold an evidentiary hearing so that she can present her claims.
That's phenomenal. And what a gift during Victims' Rights Week, right? What a great case to elevate.
Exactly.
So, Colleen, as an attorney who's been doing this work for so long, especially in a state like Arizona, what types of tips or tools would you offer to other advocates and attorneys out there to help, you know, reinforce restitution or to help elevate restitution?
Yeah, I think definitely the number one thing, you know, make sure you're asserting and enforcing your rights. And if you're a victim's rights attorney, file that notice of appearance in the criminal case on behalf of your client. If you're a victim who's unrepresented, engage with the advocate at the prosecuting attorney's office, engage with your prosecutor. But for victims' rights attorneys is to think, when you're thinking about restitution, a lot of people will focus on the past expense. In a homicide case, you might think of the funeral costs, or in an assault case, you might think of the medical cost, or you might think also of the current expenses, like we're taking off of work to go to court, we're parking, paying $30 a day to park across the street from the court for trial days. But to think beyond that and look to the future expenses, because a lot of crime victims, there are future expenses that are going to be incurred, whether it's lifetime counseling, future lost wages, to think beyond what has happened in the past and what's happening right now, but to also look to the future.
Wonderful. And I think from your example, to just challenge, right?
Yes,
there's no real loss if you don't challenge it, right? So you just file the motion, and if you don't know how, NCVLI can help, right?
absolutely, they can. NCVLI is the best. I am so grateful to NCVLI. I met Meg and the staff at NCVLI very early in my legal career, probably within a month of becoming licensed. But NCVLI is the leading victims' rights organization in the country. They provide top victims' rights trainings annually at their annual conference. Hopefully we're in person this year, but annually, I hope.
We are, so far, we are November 11th through the 13th.
Wonderful. And virtual, even these trainings that NCVLI does virtually, they provide the best training opportunities for victims' rights litigation. The technical assistance, every appellate case I have been in the almost 9 years I've been practicing, I have staffed issues with NCVLI. I have gotten amazing technical support. They've reviewed my briefs. We've even partnered on amicus briefs. And, the staff at NCVLI, they are passionate about victims' rights litigation, and they're accessible. Like I said, I met NCVLI, I met Meg and the team very early on in my career, and I immediately felt like I belonged to this small community of victims' rights lawyers in the country. But one of the things that we love too is they can connect you, to this network. And if you're dealing with an issue in your jurisdiction and you've never seen it before, or there's really not developed case law in your jurisdiction, NCVLI will know. First of all, they're going to know what to do themselves, but second of all, they're going to know who to connect you with and who has gone through who has litigated the issue that you're about to litigate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So strongly encourage any attorneys out there that are working in this field to connect with NCVLI, but also importantly, advocates, those of you that are boots on the ground, that are seeing these violations and these things that are happening in court that are in violation of your state's either constitutional statutory rights. Contact NCVLI. You will get free technical assistance. They will partner you up with an attorney in your area, someone that can assist, but they themselves will offer so much assistance. So I'm so grateful to you, Colleen, and for the good work that you're doing in Arizona. So Arizona Voice for Crime Victims, where can people find you if they're in your area and they want to connect with you and help you in the good work that you're doing?
Of course, voiceforvictims.org. And our website is under construction, but if you go to that website, there is a link with our address, our phone number, and a form somebody can fill out and hit send, and that comes directly to my inbox.
Wonderful. So inundate Colleen. Well, thank you again so much. Thank you for being a valued partner. And thank you guys for tuning in once again to our lunchtime series. We are taking tomorrow off because actually NCVLI is going to be traveling all over the country. We're doing victims' rights across the country. It's a day-long CLE. It's one of those amazing benefits that NCVLI can offer at no cost. So if you're interested in our training and our offerings, and we talked about conference coming up in November, which we're hoping will be in person, please go to NCVLI to learn about our RISE program, to learn about all of the rights and services and technical assistance that we can provide. We will be back here on Friday, and we're going to be back on Pacific time because we're going to Michigan. So I think that's Eastern. We're going to Michigan. So with the time, we're going to be here at noon in Michigan. My time zones have been fun during this process as we travel through the country. So join us back here on Friday. And thank you again so much. Please celebrate Victims' Rights Week safely and with honor. Thank you.
Thank you.